father. Eric's been gone for a few years. Talk a little bit about his principles of dating that you put to an effect, and look how it worked out for you.
Yeah. So a lot of his principles of dating, relate back to the fact that you are an individual and this other person is an individual, and your two lives really don't come together until there's an official commitment of a proposal and a marriage.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Pauli podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Today, we have a very, very, very special guest. It is Erica Gannon. She was a student at Iowa State, found her calling as a focus missionary at UW-Madison, and is now our Director of Donor Relations. Erica, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
We're very excited today. So, Erica, why don't you tell us a little bit of your testimony, your story of how you got to this point today with your faith?
Yeah. So, like you said, I went to Iowa State. I'm from Iowa, and
You're very proud to be from Iowa.
It's a great, great state.
Tell us a little bit about your love for Iowa.
I think I only loved it more when I left, to be honest.
What did you miss about it so much?
It's just home. It's like there's nothing super attractive about it unless you're from there. And then, yeah, just the sentimentality of everyone I love and growing up there and the simplicity that people live their lives with. I miss it.
Are you a big corn fan?
Yeah.
Yeah, they grow a lot of corn down there,
Of course.
I know.
My dad's a farmer.
Oh, wow.
There
we go. What type of farmer is he?
Cows, corn, and beans.
There we go. The heart of America right there. What was it like growing up in a house with your dad as a farmer?
Well, to be honest, I wasn't super connected to it because we didn't live on the farm. He wanted us all to be able to be in sports and do everything, so we lived in town and he would just drive out there.
Gotcha.
So I didn't get the most exposure to it, but I was always very proud that my dad was a farmer.
So then you go to Iowa State, and what do you study there?
I studied event management.
Okay. And then you eventually got involved in the Newman Center?
Yeah, I pretty much got involved right away. I grew up Catholic, and pretty much before I left for college, I was like, there's got to be more to this. It's always been part of our family, going to Mass, doing the sacraments, and it was definitely important to me, but I was like, people give up their lives for this. What am I missing that it just feels like another compartment of my life? I'm going to try to figure that out when I get to college. So went to Iowa State and, went to Mass. I joined a Bible study, and then they had focus missionaries there for the first year. So they were brand new. I kind of knew who they were, but pretty much just started going to Mass and then started going to adoration. And I was like, this is really Jesus' presence here, and there's only 5 people here to pray out of this whole campus. What's going on? So I just kind of made a promise to Jesus that I would be there for him every day, and I started praying every day.
Wow, that's beautiful.
It was very just a moment of grace, I guess, that kind of poured out over that whole year. I just started praying, going to Mass. And then in the spring of my freshman year, I did Fiat 90, which is the girl version of Exodus 90. But
So a series of challenges and asceticism throughout the course of 90 days, and you're not just doing it for Lent. You're a little extra like that. You get the 50 days in beforehand. And it's a whole long challenge before. Yeah,
actually, now that I think about it, I think I did only do it during Lent.
Okay,
but
the Fiat 40.
The Fiat 40, and I invited my roommates to do it with me, and they were like, "No." I was like, "Okay," so I did it by myself. Just started going to confession not every week, but more consistently, praying the rosary and daily Mass and the other asceticisms, which, kind of contribute, but the biggest thing were the prayer and the sacraments. So by the end of that, I was like, I'm locked in. I'm just going to Mass. I'm going to confession. I would say life really took a decisive direction after that.
And so then on your path of discipleship, you eventually graduated from Iowa State, and then you joined Focus. What was that process and discernment kind of like?
Yeah, I have never had a career goal in my life, to be honest with you. I've never had a dream of what I wanted to do for a job. And so even though I had options, I had been working with the athletic department, I had worked in Denver with Catholic Charities, there were definitely things on the table I could have continued with. I knew that what changed in my life in college and coming to know Christ and not missing out on that in college so that I have it for the rest of my life was so important. And so if I don't have anything else going on, I think the best thing I could do is, give that opportunity to someone else. So I just decided to go for it.
And then you're eventually placed at UW-Madison. You get to campus. And what was your initial feel of being at UW?
I was pumped. I loved it. Yeah, I really wanted to go to a big school. I wanted to go to a Big Ten school just because it's exciting.
Mm-hmm.
There are great focus missionaries everywhere, but they're very different experiences based on what campus you're placed on. So coming from a big school, I wanted that liveliness. So I loved it. I had a great team. I was super happy. I was super pumped up. Like, I don't know where all the energy came from. I look back on that, I'm like, wow, God was really gracing me.
There are many women on staff. I remember last year when as a staff, we all go through our testimonies each year and share our stories of how we came to the faith and came to know Jesus Christ and eventually, give our a year or two of our lives in service at St. Paul's. And there were a few girls that were like, Erica was just so persistent in just inviting me, to morning prayer, to mass, to go to confession, to my Bible study. And I said no many, many times, but then just that persistence and they eventually came in, which is awesome. What was kind of the experience of walking with girls while you were a focus missionary? What did you kind of learn through that?
Yeah, I had such a good time. Like, it's just such a unique experience to be, intimately involved in someone's, emotional, spiritual life and kind of knowing the ins and outs and being someone they confide in. And not only like one or two specific friends, it's like I was walking with 14 people in that way, plus 3 Bible studies, and it's just like kind of an overload of personal lives. But you also have the grace, and your full-time job is to invest in them and to help them come to Christ and, walk alongside him through everything they're going through. So I would say I really enjoyed it. A lot of times I felt like I don't really know what I can do for them other than be their friend and pray alongside them. But seeing that, God did use it was a great thing. Yeah,
it's beautiful. A friend once described, I was asking him, what's it like being a missionary? What's it like being an intern here at St. Paul's? And he said, your job is basically to be a professional friend. That's kind of your profession is you want to be a really good friend to people. And it's also kind of when you're in that role, I was at least the freshman intern last year. So there's all these freshmen coming in and they have no idea what to expect from college. And most of the time, a lot of these students have no idea when they come to school here that St. Paul's and, walking this path of discipleship with Jesus is going to be a huge part of their lives. And it's kind of beautiful and almost an imitation of being a mother, father, sort of like figure while you're on campus. And that's one of the reasons why we have you on the show today is that, Miss Erica, you are pregnant.
Yes.
It's very true. And on that, we're releasing this on the feast day of the Immaculate Conception, very fittingly, because in 20 days from now, you're due.
Yeah.
Which is incredible to think of. And so by this time, you'll actually have left working here at St. Paul's to be a full-time stay-at-home mom, which is awesome. Yeah, it's awesome. But let's talk about the man that you married to eventually get to this point.
There's been a few steps.
There's been a few steps along the journey. So what I know of your story, you finish up your time as a focus missionary, 2 years of service here at St. Paul's. And then what's the next step in the process of your story?
Yeah, so after Focus, I knew I was ready to move on to something else. Was not exactly sure what that was going to be. I took an extra summer to do Focus Summer projects in Charleston, South Carolina. Was there for about 12 weeks. Had a couple interviews before I left. Those both did not pan out for different reasons. I really wanted to get out in the secular world and kind of put my evangelization to the test in, outside the Catholic bubble, you could say. But that wasn't God's plan for me because St. Paul's called me up and had this job open. And over a couple weeks of prayer, it just seemed like the reason I was in Madison was because of St. Paul's and because of Jesus, and he wanted me here. And so I decided to take that and see where that went. I made a 3-year pact with Kennedy Peters. Shout out.
Shout out,
that we
Producer
would
Kennedy.
be here together for the next 3 years. So yeah, I took this job, and then they told me I couldn't start for 6 months. And so then I was like, oh, okay. So I became a nanny for 6 months, which was also really great. And yeah, so about a little less than a year after I finished Focus on campus here, I met my husband.
And what was his name? Jonathan.
Jonathan
Gannon. And tell us the love story. Let's get into it.
So, all my close friends knew I was just excited to meet the person that I was going to marry and get on with my life.
As you said in the beginning, you have no career ambitions.
Yeah, that's not like, I'm not trying to be a certain way by saying that. I'm just genuinely, that's how I am. But yes, so I was at a bridal shower for another friend, ran into a friend of a friend who knew Jonathan from Iowa State and that he'd moved to Madison. She's like, I've only met him like 3 times, but I would totally date him. You should date him. And I was like, why don't you date him? Why aren't you dating him then? But anyways, she sent my number to her friend that was his friend, so there was just a lot of in between. Anyways, he calls me up a couple days later. I'm in Bible study, so I don't answer. And so I call him back. He doesn't answer. We both left each other extremely awkward, embarrassing voicemails that will never be heard by anyone else.
Do you still have them today?
Yes, we do.
Producer Kennedy, you should put those in the podcast.
But we ended up talking the next day, going on a date 2 weeks later. That was our first date on March 1st.
Okay.
2024. And yeah, it was a blind date, so you're just kind of meeting up. I was excited, but I wasn't like getting my hopes up, I guess. But it was a very nice day. I got super sick the day before, and I knew that I needed to go on the date anyways. Like, I really didn't want to cancel on him. So we went out for dinner, and it was nice. It wasn't like earth-shattering, but it was like very nice, pleasant. And then, yeah, we just continued
forth.
And
the wild part about your story is that you were at Iowa State, he's at Iowa State, but you never meet each other there.
Right, yes.
Did you guys go to the school at the same time?
Yes.
Incredible. And then you both eventually end up in Madison for different reasons. He takes a job at Strand Engineering. You working here at St. Paul's, and somehow God had a plan for you guys to meet. So then, what was it like dating? Because eventually, end of the story is you get married.
Yes.
So how does that process kind of go?
So it went quickly. Once we started going on dates, I feel like it was kind of developing pretty naturally. I have been very informed by Father Eric Nielsen's practices, recommendations. You could say I drank the Kool-Aid and took his advice on most things.
And so for the people that don't know, because we have a lot of students that listen to this podcast, and Father Eric's been gone for a few years, talk a little bit about his principles of dating that you put to an effect, and look how it worked out for you.
Yeah. So a lot of his principles of dating relate back to the fact that you are an individual and this other person is an individual, and your two lives really don't come together until there's an official commitment of a proposal and a marriage. And so to go through dates, spend time together, once a week For us, it was once during the week, once on the weekend. Do something fun, get out and about, get to know the person, but that emotional bond and attachment that you make to each other doesn't happen until, there's a commitment, because otherwise you're putting your heart at risk. So it was probably our 5th date or so where I kind of laid out all of my expectations for how I wanted to date. And they kind of seem a little radical at first maybe, but Jonathan loved it. Like, now that I know him obviously very well, it's like he loves to have a plan and to know like how to move forward. So I think he really took that to heart, and really respected and implemented like everything that I, wanted out of this relationship, and keeping a lot of great boundaries.
Yeah. And let's give a little advice to the people. If you wouldn't mind sharing, what were some of those principles that you laid out for them?
Sure. Well, obviously the first one is no physical interactions. That wouldn't be appropriate between friends, essentially. And then only seeing each other once or twice a week. Always having a plan for what the date is. It's not watching a movie or hanging out. It's you have a plan and you're doing something together. I said, I want to hear I love you when I'm getting proposed to, because that means you're making a commitment to me and you have something to back it up. It's not just an emotional feeling. So he did do that one. Well, he did all of them. We did all of them, I guess. I'm trying to think of what else. We were very clear that, like, starting to date someone feels like you're taking a risk, because you're like, this can go one of two ways. And if I get myself in too deep, I'm really risking like having my heart broken or having to break someone else's heart. And that is scary. And I really felt that like fear when I first was getting to know him. And so just establishing that, like, we both know that the purpose of dating is to figure out if this person is the person that you are eventually going to marry. But all of the pressure that comes along with that should not be, shouldn't put a strain on the relationship or put more pressure on either one of us. So, we had a lot of good conversations, but, we never talked about what it would be like to be married to each other before we were engaged, or things like that.
You have a lot of wise wisdom about dating, and you've walked with a lot of girls through your time as a focused missionary and as being a mentor to a lot of people at St. Paul's. What do you think a lot of men and women do wrong in the modern dating landscape?
Oh, well, I guess I won't speak for everyone, but I will say that you can probably fall into either extreme of, treating a dating relationship as if it's 100% secure and you're putting all, of your hopes and dreams in this one person that can easily be crushed. And that can happen up until your wedding day. And you have to be realistic about that. Or you could be in the camp of not being willing to expose yourself to risk. And, to love and to put your heart on the line. It does have to happen in some sense when you're in a dating relationship. And I guess just keeping... what's the word that I'm trying to say? Keeping possession of your own heart throughout the whole time, I would say, is the biggest thing, and not giving away to that person too early. And I think that's one thing. I also think that we dated for about 3 months before we got engaged, and I'm not recommending that everyone do that. That's just how it happened, and we were older than a lot of you that are listening to this. But I will say that if you start into a dating relationship in which the point of this is to discern if this is a person that you want to enter into marriage with, but you're not in a place for that to be a logical step in the next year, I would say to pull back and not, get into something that you really can't, make it a phase. If it's going to be too long of a phase, it gets really, really hard. I would say the attachment is going to grow really strong. And I would say something that I felt very strongly, I was like falling in love with Jonathan, and it was like, this relationship is so beautiful. And like, I know he's so willing and like desirous to sacrifice for me and I for him. But when we're just dating, really only this relationship is only benefiting one another at an emotional level. Like, that is really the only benefit that's coming from this. And as soon as you're married, your marriage is bringing grace into the world, and that relationship takes on such a more intense depth. It gives out selflessness instead of selfishness. So I would say that period of dating and even engagement is, in a sense, selfish, because you're benefiting from these emotional feelings toward this person without the graces of the sacrament.
Right. And without really having to put any intention or commitment behind it.
Yeah.
What are a couple things that, for all the women out there listening today that are still single and about, that they should be looking for in a good man? Because I've met your husband, Jonathan, and he's a great man. He's a stand-up guy.
Yes.
He's what, a lot of college guys should look up to as a man of great virtue and and faithfulness. And what are some things that you look for in a husband, and you think that everyone should look for when they're searching for that husband?
I would say that you need someone that's going to be reliable. You need someone that has the virtue and the track record of actually, keeping commitments, doing something hard with their lives, not taking the easy way out, because the rest of your life is not going to be easy. And I would say that first. I would say faith is very important. But for every person, faith is a journey, and, it's the work of God's grace. A lot of times for, the pace in which he's maybe working at in their lives. And I mean, I'm so blessed that, Jonathan was in a place of, very much so faithfully practicing the faith before I met him. But when I was looking for a husband, I would say just because they're not praying a holy hour and going to daily mass does not disqualify them from being a great husband. So, yeah, I would say, in a sense, temper your expectations, in which this person isn't like a god that you're going to meet that's perfect and fulfills everything you've ever dreamed of in, whatever husband you've dreamed up in your mind, and you're a woman, so you can't even conceive what a man is, that you have a woman brain. But, the habits and the things that you can see in them, the way they treat their family, the way that they treat their schoolwork or their career, and the hard work and the dedication and not backing down from a challenge, all of those things are going to make them a great husband.
Yeah, that's such a good piece of advice for what women should look for in a man. But let's flip the switch a little bit, because men also have to look for a wife. And so you've only been a wife for what, almost a year now?
Yeah, about 8 months.
8 months. But in your brief time as a wife, what are some things that men should look for in a woman when they're dating?
It's a good question. I would say similar things. I would say reliability, and, strength in a way. I think women, you make up 50% of the marriage, and it's easy to, look for a strong man, that's going to take care of you and blah, 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 but that doesn't make you a passive member of this relationship. And so, working really hard at whatever it is in life that you're doing, making the most of your time, developing skills that you want to use for the rest of your life, being a really good friend. I would say definitely, guarding your purity in a way that shows the world that you are, waiting for a good husband. Yeah. And don't go easy on yourself. Yeah. I would say that the time before you meet your husband is going, if you use it well, is going to make his life so much better someday. And if you haven't learned to deal with your emotions, if you haven't, had a normal routine and commitments that you're keeping in your daily routine, keeping up your health, like all of those things aren't going to flip a switch. When you get married, you are the person that your husband is going to marry. And so, And all of those things, I would say, when you have a faith life, is like you're doing those for the sake of Christ, because they are going to make you a reflection of him. And so the primary reason isn't to find a husband. It's to be, a woman of faith. And the way that God designed women to also possess virtues and also work really hard in their unique way, all begin long before you meet your husband. They're already a part of who you are.
You touched a little bit about, being a man or woman of God, even before you're dating. You shouldn't be doing that so that you can find, a husband or a wife. But let's talk a little bit about your faith experience by getting married, and what's that kind of looked like, and how that's changed since you've gotten married. So talk about that a little bit.
So I would say the first thing that was kind of unexpected was that it's harder to pray every day and go to mass every day and, keep up the spiritual disciplines I was doing, because you have an obligation to someone else at all times. And I didn't have that before, obviously. And it just comes down to that your primary obligation is to Christ, and he comes ahead of your spouse. But getting in a rhythm, in a groove in which we both are keeping up our daily prayer commitments individually for mental prayer has been very important. And I think we both had a moment of realization just probably a month or two into the marriage, in which we realized that we cannot be the spouse that the other needs without prayer. And that is kind of like a heavy realization to come across, but I'm so glad that it happened pretty soon, because it's like we both got to be on our prayer game if this is going to be a happy marriage. So I would say finding a routine with that has been important. We pray the rosary together every single day, and that is a non-negotiable, I would say. Having Mary be, a centerpiece of our relationship, and trusting any struggles to her is, we're not only carrying them for one another, we're also letting her bear our burdens with us, has been very powerful. And I know a lot of couples pray together. We don't really pray like out loud together a lot, but in a sense, like, I just really appreciate the consistency of the rosary. And I don't have to say anything special, and he knows that I'm praying for him, he's praying for me, we're praying for our family, we're praying for our marriage. So yeah, that's what I would say.
You mentioned a little bit at the end that you're, praying for your family, praying for your children, and you are pregnant, right? 8 months now.
Yeah.
What's that experience been like of, being pregnant? Obviously, I'm a man, so I know nothing about this. But I want to hear a little bit about the experience of a first-time mother.
Yeah, it's so crazy. I think that being pregnant is like being part of an inner club in which only other people that have been pregnant will know what's going on. And I knew you were going to ask me about this, so I've been reflecting on it. And I think pregnancy is like just another level of the mystery of a woman. Like Father Nielsen would always say, like, a woman is a mystery even unto herself. Like, I don't know how my body knew how to do this, but there is a 4-pound baby in there right now, So it's definitely very, like, miraculous to, like Mary would say, like, be done unto me, not something that, I'm consciously building a baby, but it's happening. So it's very miraculous. But in a much more practical sense, it is really demanding, I would say. It has completely changed the way that I feel physically and mentally. It has changed the way I pray. There has not been a moment in the last 7 months that I have forgotten that I'm pregnant, because it's always there. It's something that's inescapable. Mm-hmm. And that is very interesting, because so far in my life, most things you can kind of back away from when they are hard or when you're not in control of them, but not this. So, yeah.
I mean, I've gotten to see a tiny bit of it, just a slight glimpse of it on a day-to-day basis by working in the same office as you. And, you know, as a person who hasn't spent their time around a lot of pregnant women in my life, I have a lot more respect for my mom after seeing Erica on a day-to-day basis. Yeah, what's that kind of been like? Like, have you kind of gotten to experience like a different side of the cross and like the passion of Christ through this process?
I would say, yeah. I would say I could do a better job with not, parading my cross around. I think I could be a little more interior about the things that are hard about it, but I think the biggest thing that I've realized is that the cross is the greatest suffering that ends in the greatest victory, and the salvation of our souls. When Christ faithfully carries his cross, the reward at the end is salvation, and that's amazing. And I kind of feel like pregnancy has been the hardest journey that I've ever been on, and the reward at the end, please God, is a baby, is a child that I've wanted for my whole life. And so the idea of like meeting my baby is like in a much less sense analogous to, meeting Christ in heaven. And I don't think I've experienced something so parallel in my life so far.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah. There's a statement from St. Josemaria, enjoy not a day without the cross, and I love saying that there really is no, they say that there's no rainbow without the rain, and you got to go through the muck to get to the good stuff. Mm-hmm. And you can, I've only used those analogies really in sports, but it's very similar to anything in life. Like if you want to experience anything good, you also have to experience the hardships and the sufferings. And that's probably the most innately true with going through a 9-month journey where it's truly inescapable. Like a lot of the times in, our own lives, we can, choose to do hard things. I can choose to, do my work very excellently today. I can choose to wake up early and commit to prayer. I can choose to love the person in front of me. That's hard, but you can't, once you're pregnant, you can't really choose to bear the cross. Like it's just there. It's an inescapable reality, which I think is, just something profound and mysterious about the way God made us.
Yeah, I agree.
For the women out there, tell them some advice of how they can better prepare for for this gift of pregnancy and motherhood.
Yeah, sure. I think it's a decently common, dream for a lot of women to have a lot of kids and to have them soon as possible, just to get going. And I can say that in a sense that is my hope, to have some kids. And I don't think that I had a second thought as to a child is such a gift from God. Like the physical nature of like carrying a pregnancy is so out of your control, and such a gift from God. And so like it's good to have dreams and everything. We also have to be surrendered to the will of God and to, accept his will as it comes to us. So I would say dream as much as you want about the family that you want to have. Practice the virtues so that when your baby is here, you've at least had some sort of self-giving. I'm preparing myself that I have never given myself the way that I will when the baby is here. But yeah, I would also say, accept the crosses that will come in the meantime. And just like marriage, like isn't ours to grasp and to do everything like white knuckle to just like meet your husband and force him into a proposal. That's not how it goes. It's a gift from God, and it's not owed to you at all. And I think carrying this pregnancy and seeing a lot of the reality of friends and my sisters and both of our moms' experiences with having children is like, we are so blessed, and this is truly a gift from God that, should be regarded as such and not something out of our own power we have done.
That's awesome. I want to ask you one final question, or it's not really a question, but do you have a message for your future children? If they're listening to this in 20 years and, Vox Pauli is the biggest podcast in the world and, they go, oh, Mom, you were on that show one time. What was that like? And let's end with a little message for your future kids.
Yeah, I believe that you are all my way to heaven, and loving you and raising you will make me a saint through the grace of God.
Amen. Erica, it was amazing having you on the podcast today. It's been an absolute pleasure working with you in the office. On just behalf of everyone at St. Paul's, thank you for your years of service here, both in mission and everything that you've done for this place. And blessings and graces to you on this journey of motherhood. And I hope you and Jonathan raise a crazy ruckus. So thank you again. And to all of you guys out there, thank you for listening to another episode of the Vox Pauli. Blessings to St. Paul. Pray for us.
Pray for us.
Vox.
Vox.
Godspeed.